More sports and Les Levine, the NFL draft special. We've heard from Andrew Berry. We've heard from Kevin Stefanski. Time to check back into Berea, where we'll hear from Paul DePodesta about the Browns taking Jedrick Wills, 10th overall in the first round.
I think I've already heard from AB and Kevin, but we're obviously very excited about what we're able to do, tonight in the first round. When I talked to all of you last week, we talked about being a team that's really focused on best player available. And I think we ended up in a really fortunate spot tonight where best player available on our board happened to be a position of real need, on our team. So that doesn't happen every year, but we were fortunate that was the case. And, we're thrilled to get Jedrick on our team. We went through a lot of different scenarios over the course of the past week and really tried to prepare for the worst. So we didn't necessarily anticipate that we were going to have any of them to choose from. We had a lot of different scenarios in mind where, that they might not be there. But we also thought there was a real chance that at least one or two of them could be there. I think we were pleasantly surprised that three were there. But we had run through so many scenarios. We definitely thought that this was at least a reasonable likelihood that we'd have a shot at one of the guys we really like. We didn't necessarily know that we'd have a shot at the top one on our board. So that was a pleasant surprise. Really well. I think I said this last week. My biggest regret to date is that we're not all in the building together today. Today, tomorrow, and Saturday, in order to enjoy this together, because it really has been a collaborative effort. To this point, and even with this pick, it was highly collaborative, and we were on the phone with everybody, even at 6:30, tonight Eastern time, with the entire football operation, coaches, scouts, front office people, everybody. So hopefully everyone is at home as excited as we are, collectively. So it really has been seamless. Again, we would have liked to have all been there to celebrate together, but I think we've made the most of it. I think probably the most prominent one and probably the most important one for us is Tyron Smith. From the Cowboys, and it happened to be that the coach that oversaw that was Bill Callahan. So he was a dominant right tackle in college. He's been a dominant left tackle in the NFL, and fortunately for us, we have his coach. So a sample of one there is not a great sample, but we know it's possible. I think Bill's excited to have him. In the case of Jedrick too, it's a little different. He was protecting Tua's blind side in college, with a left-handed quarterback. And that's primarily why he was playing right. And obviously they had Jonah Williams up until this year too, playing on the other side. But we're confident that athletically he can do it. And Bill obviously feels comfortable that he can do it. And, we just think it's not that it'll be seamless, because I think with every player, as we talked about last week, they all have their growing pains when they get to this level. And, I'm sure he'll experience some of those, and also because he has to make the transition to the other side, but we're very confident he'll be able to do it. I mean, if things fell the right way, as I said before, we have been really focused on best player available. Now, as it turns out, we thought there were a handful of very good tackles on the board this year, and that was a real need for us. So I think it meshed together nicely, but it wasn't something that we thought we have to do this. In terms of remaining flexible, we were in contact with teams in front of us. We were in contact with teams behind us. We were prepared for a lot of different eventualities. And, earlier today, AB and I were talking, and we said, well, we know when we go to bed tonight, we're going to be a lot better off than we were when we woke up. We just don't know exactly how, and we knew there were going to be some really good players available to us at 10. We just didn't know who they were going to be. As it turns out, we, got one we're incredibly excited about. So I'll take the second one first. He was actually the top tackle on our board from the beginning. So we were, again, really excited. It's a really, really good group of tackles. So that's certainly not to slight those other guys, because I think they would have all been worthy of being taken, with our pick. But we were, certainly excited about Jedrick. In terms of the other one, because he still plays for another team, I don't really want to comment too much about the player. I will say this: throughout the spring, we've tried to understand all of the available options to us. Especially at a position of such importance, left tackle. So I think we've kept abreast of the different possibilities. we knew there were some real possibilities in this draft. But I think that's really where our focus was ultimately. We did think that, we had a decent shot at one of these guys, falling to us at 10. And I think we were going to wait to see, what happened there before we really pursued, any other avenue. It's a good question. I'm not sure. It was funny. After the 12th pick, we have a group chat in addition to our WebEx meeting going on right now. And I wrote in the group chat, when was the last time that we went through the first 12 picks without a transaction? And it was about 2 minutes later that they announced the swap for 13 and 14. So I think I got my comment in under the wire. But yeah, I don't know what contributed to it. I think the distance probably has something to do with it. But then again, even in past drafts, when we're making deals, you're making them on the phone. And that's no different today, than it is if we were all in the draft room. The conversations that you have after you make the call or after you have the call, those are a little different. We have to run those a little differently, but I don't think ultimately that really influenced the lack of transactions. I think there were a lot of really interesting players, available to teams. And, we talked to some teams in front of us in preparation for the draft, and kind of everyone said the same thing, which is if, one or two players are available to us, we're going to sit and pick. And I think we kind of felt the same way. If there are certain players available to us, we're going to sit and pick. Otherwise, we're interested in moving around. But the way the draft fell, early, it just seemed like the teams that were picking had guys on their board that, they just wanted to sit and pick. No. And I think there were probably some opportunities too, if we had really pushed it. But no, I think, there were a couple players where, we thought we were going to sit and pick for sure. But it's a good question. I think all of them were attractive for sort of their own reasons. We thought that this was a highly unusual tackle class. I mean, this is probably as good an offensive tackle class, certainly since 2016, where you had some awfully good ones, come out early in the first round. You had guys like Ronnie Stanley and Laramie Tunsil, and now our own, Jack Conklin. Very, very accomplished guys. This class, at least as we sit here today, sort of matches up, with that. So it's, I think when you start separating one from the other, you get a little picky because they're all really, really good. And in any normal draft, any one of them could have been, the top tackle, available. For us with Jedrick, though, I think it was the combination of everything. It's obviously playing at a place like Alabama, the coaching he's already gotten, his athleticism, and his smarts. This is a very, very bright guy. I think he's really advanced from a football knowledge standpoint, but we think mentally he's advanced, and he's just a mature person. He's a pro, I think already. That doesn't mean he's not going to have a lot of things to learn, and he's not going to have to grow in different ways. But we just really liked his approach to the game, and we've talked a lot about finding players that are smart, tough, and accountable, and we felt like he really checked all three of those boxes. I don't know if I'd go sort of quite that far, but there were certainly guys that we liked. We also thought there were some other, non-tackles that we liked, that we would have, been excited to take at 10 if in fact there had been a run on tackles early in front of us, and then we, would have then gone, in another direction, in terms of finding an answer there. But we liked them, certainly quite a bit. But I think there were some at least differences in terms of the way we felt about each individual guy, and that probably would have changed. It probably would have changed our strategy a little bit depending on who was there. But again, that ultimately was something we weren't faced with since the top guy was there. I think it's hard to say, and I probably won't share exactly how our board lined up, but we're certainly happy with the way it ended up. Well, I don't want to put too much on Bill because I think that would be unfair. But we certainly weighed his opinion pretty heavily, in this group, and he absolutely felt confident that this was something that was possible and that Jedrick could do. Now again, that doesn't mean it's going to be flawless, but I think he has a strong belief that Jedrick's capable of doing this, and that definitely weighed heavily. I mean, if he had come to us and said, "Listen, this is highly unlikely that he could make such a transition," then I don't think he would have been the top guy on our board. So we had Terry, we had scouting meetings. I'm trying to think of our schedule back in February before going to the combine. And we set, at least at that point, we had sort of separated the top guys and maybe had a preliminary ranking. But it was far from being set in stone. In fact, it was probably in light pencil, at that point. And then we had additional meetings in early April. And then we also had meetings with our coaching staff in early to mid-April. And I think it wasn't really until after all those processes were complete that we had our order. So I would have said it's probably, thinking about the calendar, maybe 2 weeks ago when it was set the way it ended up turning out. I wasn't on the call, so I don't know exactly what was discussed, but I know that they did address it. And I think everybody felt comfortable about his ability to do it.